The EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at theeppodcast.com.
And belly on up to the 9-foot homemade oak bar. Pour yourself a cold one. My name is Chris. The weekend is upon us, and this is the EP Podcast. 30 minutes of good for Evergreen Park and the surrounding area, and each and every Thursday afternoonish into Friday during the high school football season, we're going to be checking in with head coach Jerry Verde of the Evergreen Park Mustangs for our Football Friday special. That does not mean the normal 30 minutes of good that is the EP Podcast goes away. That is still out on demand, ready for you to listen to each and every Monday or at your leisure. You can get it on any podcast player. You can also get all of the options where you can download it. You can subscribe, everything at theeppodcast.com. If you listen to this program, say through a link on Facebook, it was shared with you, and you don't want to miss an episode, or you want to go back and hear stuff that we've talked about in the past, maybe an interview with the mayor, maybe when we stop by the farmer's market, maybe when we meet an interesting person that works or lives in Evergreen Park. All of the episodes are on demand, and the best way to get them is to subscribe through a podcast player. Best podcast app is Apple Podcast. Like 70% of the people that use podcasts in the world still use Apple Podcast. If you have an iPhone, the app's already on your phone. Spotify's a big one. We're there. iHeartRadio's a big one. We're there. You can tell Alexa, play the EP Podcast. We're there. Google Podcast and Podchaser are becoming big apps. We're on both of those, and a lot of people that have an Android use those, or Spotify, as I mentioned earlier. Then you never miss an episode of the EP Podcast, which is brought to you by the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. Get your kids a student checking account from the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. They get a debit card of their own, unlimited free in-network ATMs, an easy-to-use mobile banking app. My 14-year-old literally just looks at his account every day, just brings up his phone, just checks it on his mobile banking app. Teens and young adults can start managing their money more independently while they still have access to award-winning customer service from a bank that cares about their needs, and then go right up the street and see them at 95th and Pulaski. Learn more, sign up, bankevergreenpark.com/school. No minimum opening deposit, no minimum balance, no monthly maintenance fees. Member FDIC. Podcast will be out with you, the people, on Saturday, October the 8th for Evergreen Park's second annual Oktoberfest. It kicks off at 2 p.m. It goes until 9, Klein Park or Circle Park, whatever you call it, and the community center, that big area being used for this event. They got a beer garden. Binny's is going to be there. Baracco's going to be there. Happy Jack's, Tone Capone's taco truck. Bratwurst stand, hot dogs, nachos, popcorn, snow cones, cotton candy for the kids. There's going to be a DJ out there. Sun Fallen Band is going to be there. Stein hoisting competition. I did that last year. I believe I'm hosting that as well this year. We'll see who can hold a stein full of beer the longest, and you get to keep the beer afterward. There's line dancing, Mr. Scott's music show, pony rides, petting zoo, jumpies, touch a truck, face painting. The EP Podcast is going to be out there giving away cold, hard cash. This thing's going to be an absolute blast. It's one of the best events of the year. They just started it last year. It was such a big event, so much fun. They brought it back again. Get over there, all of Evergreen Park, anybody within the sound of my voice, get to Evergreen Park, get over there to Circle Park, the community center, and get to Oktoberfest this Saturday, the 8th, starting at 2 p.m. The most recent episode of the EP Podcast before this one actually is called The Fest of October. You can check that out if you missed it. The Evergreen Park Public Library had live music and a big party this past weekend. There's audio from that. The Stockyard Kilty Band came down here to the 9-foot homemade oak bar promoting a benefit for one of their fallen members. It's coming up on October the 15th at 115 Bourbon Street. And we had audio from the first ever Oktoberfest at Open Outcry over on Western Avenue. After you listen to this episode, go back and check out that one. Head Coach Jerry Verde's next right here on Football Friday on the EP Podcast, found anywhere podcasts can be found, and always at theeppodcast.com. Building relationships, supporting the community, and service. These are the things that Country Financial stands for. They're more than just an office you may pass by as you drive through Evergreen Park. They're neighbors who lend a helping hand and support the fabric of your community, including charitable organizations, sports, financial education, and civic organizations. And since Country is already your neighbor, they want to get together and chat. Call your local Country Financial representative, Mike Thauer, today at 708-425-1559 to talk about the things that are important to you and how he can help you protect them. And back on the line with me for yet another week to talk about Evergreen Park Mustang football, their head coach, Jerry Verde. How are you, Coach?
I'm good, Chris.
I feel bad because I hyped up the win over Revis as your biggest win of the year. I gushed about it, and then you may have had your toughest loss of the year against Thornton Fractional South because that team was 1-4. I know it was their homecoming. I know you were on the road, but that felt like it was a really winnable game, and I would imagine it was a bit of a letdown for you. Is that high school football in a microcosm right there, that they're not professional athletes, they're still kids, and sometimes when you're rolling really high, you trip up and you have a bad week?
Yeah, I mean, that can happen, and as hard as we push at practice, the coaching staff and things like that, it's sometimes hard to break into a player's psyche when you're sitting at 4-1 and you got a game that you believe you should win, and you start counting 5-1 before you get there, and then you don't get there, and we had, the game against TF South, we made a lot of mistakes with execution, and even the touchdowns that they scored, one ended up being kind of a broken play for us defensively, and the other one was a broken play for them offensively, where it was a third and very long, and the quarterback scrambled around. This would have been in the third quarter, and threw a 30-yard pass into the end zone, and the guy made the crazy diving catch. And then you're sitting, at that time when they scored the touchdown, we were losing 12-7. We went into halftime winning 7-6, and we had a lot of opportunities to score, just didn't execute. And we had some opportunities, even when they scored, to stop them. They ended up putting in a touchdown with like a minute and change to go. When the game had already been decided. But, that was a tough one. And sometimes, you got to take the opportunity to reset, and that's what we've done this week. And we've had a good week of practice. So hopefully the very tough loss can still bear fruit in the end.
I was going to say, you would think that this season has been a real learning experience for a lot of your players. You have the game against Oak Lawn, which is a big rivalry game, and you win, and you're on a high. And then a loss 27-7 to Richards the next week. So your guys regroup, they play Revis. Your quarterback makes a brilliant decision. We were talking about it. He makes this huge run, big play late in the game. We broke down that play last week. But then late in this game against Thornton Fractional South, he learns that it doesn't always work out for you as he holds on to the ball, and there's a play and there's a fumble, and they get the ball back. It's the up and down of it where I think that at this point they're probably learning you can't get too high and you can't get too low, which is probably something that most coaches want to teach their kids. But you've had a couple of weeks here where they've seen the lesson of it, I would think, at this point, right?
Right, and you got to learn from those lessons. You really do. I mean, late in the game, there was about 5 minutes left to go, and we drove down the field, and with that 5 minutes to go, we were, you're second down and relatively short, and we were on, I believe, like the 18-yard line, and you could even feel it on the sideline. We expected to score. We were already kind of talking about, going for two at that point, because it would have been then made the game 15-12, and they would the field goal by them would have only tied it. And then the ball pops out. And that's sports. That's the way it works. And a valuable lesson for any high school athlete is, all your will and all your plans. You forget that the other team has will and the other team has plans too. And they're not going to let it happen. You got to make it happen, and that's a lesson that is constantly learned, especially in high school sports.
You got 3 games ahead here for the rest of your regular season. You're home finally. You're homecoming here against Shepherd. You got Blue Island the next week, and Blue Island is tied with you right now at 2-1 in the conference in second place. And then you have Argo at the very end on a Thursday night game. Generally, 5 wins gets you into the postseason. You're guaranteed it when you get to 6 wins. You're sitting at 4-2 right now. Is that something that you sit down and you tell your team, like, look, the job is not done. We've had a good season, but you guys have to finish this out? Or are you still preaching one game at a time?
It's still one game at a time. As we talked about in the past, and it's the beauty of football in general, whether it's, high school or college or beyond, every week is its own little season. It always is, and there's a routine that goes into the week as you prepare for your opponent, and there's a lot of question marks, and then you come up with your plan and you start implementing that plan, and some of the questions get answered, and then the plan that you put together, you're putting the finishing touches on like a Thursday practice, and then you go out and play on Friday, and you don't deviate from the week to week situation of football, and even like a blanket statement of, well, we got to win 1 out of the last 3. Well, that takes away from the week you're playing, because then whenever you say we got to win 1 of the last 3, everyone automatically tries to find, well, which of the 3 games are you most likely to win, And we're in a situation where we could win all of the last 3 games if we play to our potential. So we take it week to week, and our focus this week definitely was on Shepherd.
All right, player of the game for this 18-7 loss that I'm sure you want to just shake off and move on from with your game here on Friday night at home against Shepherd. Who's your player of the game against Thornton Fractional South?
Our player of the game against TS South was Eduardo Antunes. He's junior defensive end. He also plays offensive line. He had 9 tackles, including a tackle for loss, and he was just all over the field, and it was very difficult for them to run his direction. They actually started just to run away from him. That's really a testament to how much he's grown. He's going to be a 3-year starter for us. His sophomore year last year, he played every game, and he was playing both ways the whole time. So he's got a lot of experience, and he's also he's a special player where the sky's the limit for him. He's got a big 6'3" frame. He might even get up to 6'4" here. Very strong and very mobile. So we've got really high hopes for him, and he's starting to nibble at that potential that he has, and it's pretty special to watch when he gets there.
You say sky's the limit. Do you identify players from time to time that you look at and go, that kid's going to play in college? Like, are you able to see that, or is that something you don't really see until the very end, or when they tell you, hey, I'm going to the university of such and such? Do you see players like that?
Yeah. I mean, this is my 16th year of coaching high school football, and I've coached Laquan Treadwell, who was a first-round draft pick in the NFL, and Lance Lenore, who played for the Cowboys, and Niles Morgan, who was captain at Notre Dame, and he got a nibble at the NFL, but he was playing in Canada, and special players you can see relatively early, and the first part of it is unfortunately for some kids is just going to be your body type. You can teach speed. You can even teach speed to a certain extent, and you can get you can get kids stronger, but you can't teach height, you can't teach frame, and you can't teach reach. And Eduardo has those going for him. So he's a special player, and his drive makes him a potential, college recruit, and that's definitely what we're hoping for. And high school football is also interesting because you got to remember in college, yes, there's Division I and there's FCS, which used to be 1AA, and then you got Division II and NAIA and D3. There's tons of opportunity for high school athletes, even those that don't have the Division I intangibles as far as body type to play. And, a lot of better players on teams will have some kind of opportunity to play. Maybe it is Division III or something higher. But, when you start talking about potential Division I athletes, it really is to start with all about the body type. And then you go into the other intangibles like grades and speed and things like that.
All right. You got Shepherd. It's homecoming. Friday night, 7 o'clock. at Evergreen Park. Is homecoming week a massive distraction that drives you crazy, Coach? Be honest.
Absolutely. Yes, it is. It is. And I'm not afraid to say that. It's fun for the guys, the players, and it's special. But, one of the great ironies of homecoming usually is that homecoming's more about the school community than it is about the football team. And yes, the game can be a center point for homecoming. But the activities are fun for the school and for the kids, the different dress up days and the alumni that'll come back and watch the football game and things like that. But every year we have homecoming, I tell the players the same thing. The only thing you're going to remember about homecoming is how you played. That's it. That's what you'll remember as a football player, So from that standpoint, that's always our emphasis on homecoming week.
So Shepherd's 2-4, Evergreen Park 4-2, but let's throw the records out because a team with a losing record facing you is not a guarantee in any way. We've seen that this year. You got your guys, good week of practice. You got the distraction of homecoming going on. You've got a lot that you're probably thinking about. But tell me a little bit about this Shepherd team and how you guys are going to attack them.
Well, Shepherd's a good team. They've got tons of weapons and some really, really good skill players. That in a few situations there are a few matchup issues, but we go into this with a decent amount of confidence. We know we can compete with them, and we know it's going to be a 48-minute game. This will not be a game that's decided in 24 minutes or anything like that. It's going to be a battle to the end, and that's the situation we put ourselves in. Hopefully, with the good week of practice that we've had this week, we put ourselves in a situation to be successful.
Should be a fun time. You guys haven't had a lot of home games. We talked about this earlier in the year. You're basically road warriors this year, and with all the pomp and circumstance of homecoming and everything, it probably is still going to be fun to get in front of that crowd, I would think, on Friday night and play in front of your home fans who have traveled well this year, but actually be in your stadium. I'm sure you're looking forward to game time.
Oh yeah, we love playing at home. We love playing in our stadium. We love the setting. EP is a great place to come watch a football game, and our crowds have always been very good, over the years, and I'm sure this week will be no different than that.
Another show is wrapped up, another show's in the books, another show is wrapped up, and then by the looks it's gonna be a good one, and we'll see you next week. And the nude is basement, and the nude is basement. Another show is wrapped up, another show is wrapped up, another show is wrapped up, and it's in the books. Another show is wrapped up, another show is wrapped up, and by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. Nudist basement, broadcast basement, the nudist basement, the broad basement. Slancha.
The EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at the eppodcast.com.